All right.
And then do you need to make me a co-host so I can share my
Oh,
screen?
yes, I do. Hold on just 1 second. Okay, so you should have it now. Perfect.
Okay.
All right. Well, welcome everybody to Roundabout's virtual author event for Oregon hiking. My name is Julie. If you haven't been to the bookstore recently or didn't get to go to some of our live events, you might not know me. I'm the events manager at the store. We are going to continue our events via Zoom for the time being because we want to protect all of our customers, all of our authors, all of our employees. So again, thank you so much for being here tonight on a Zoom event. I know Zoom has taken over so many of our lives, that I really appreciate everyone who takes the time to sit through another event at their computer. But I think this one's going to be really fun because this one's going to get you to want to go outside again. So I just want to remind everyone, the bookstore is open every day 10 to 5. If you're not comfortable coming into the bookstore, but you still want to get something, give us a call. You can pick up from the red bench. We are still offering our owl delivery. It's now $3 an order, but that's for as many books as you want. And I believe it's still happening on Thursday, but call the bookstore. We are so happy to get books to anybody who wants them. So we are so lucky to have new to Bend, Matt. Matt, say your last name for me.
Wastradowski.
I was going to get it. I have a very unusual last name. I think I was going to get it right.
Yeah.
So let's see here. You are a travel and outdoor writer based here in Bend. Chances are good he's doing something that deepens his passion and enthusiasm for the Beaver State and the broader Pacific Northwest, which you are a local of that area. It says in recent years you have visited nearly 150 breweries and cideries. Can I go with you next time?
Let's do it. Yeah, absolutely.
And driven roughly 20,000 miles around Oregon, camped in tents, yurts, and fire lookouts, and you've spent countless hours exploring seemingly every backcountry road the state has to offer, often with no bars on your iPhone, which can get a little scary.
A little bit.
So we're going to be talking about the New Moon Guide, which is a great guide series altogether called Oregon Hiking, Best Hikes plus Beer, Bites, and Campgrounds Nearby. I love that you included all of that Oregon-ness in that. So I'm going to turn it over to you because I am super excited to hear all about this and I don't need to talk anymore. It's all you.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Julie. I'm super excited to talk about it. So we'll dive right in, share my screen. And all right, let's see, does that look right to everyone?
Yeah.
All right, cool. So yes, my name is Matt Wastradowski. I am a Bend resident now, and also the author of Moon Oregon Hiking, which came out earlier this month. And tonight, for the next 30 or 40 minutes, or 50 or 60 minutes, depending on how talkative I get, I will talk about cool and surprising hikes around Oregon. Before I do that, though, I just want to say 3 quick things. 1, thank you for attending tonight. I know we all have Zoom fatigue. We've been doing this for a year plus. We're tired of it. We're over it. But I think, and especially today, it's a beautiful day in Bend, as it so often is. You could be anywhere right now. You could be around the fire pit at Avid Cider, just to name one example, but you're here. I appreciate it. So thank you all for spending the next hour with me. 2, thank you to Roundabout Books for hosting this. I think over the past year plus, Roundabout has done so much great work. Cassie, Julie, the whole team have done a lot to keep people engaged and to get books to people, and they're doing a great work. They deserve all of a round of applause. They deserve some nice long vacations, and most of all, they deserve our business, as much business as we can throw at them. So thank you, Roundabout Books, for putting this on. I really appreciate it. With that, we'll dive in. Let's see. There we go. So who am I? I am Matt Wastradowski. As you can tell by the Oregon birthday cake that I enjoyed with my best friend last year, I love Oregon. I love writing about its outdoors, its craft beer, its history, you name it. I have done so. I have written about Oregon or the outdoors for Outside, REI, Northwest Travel and Life, Willamette Week, and several other publications and outlets. It's a lot of fun. I really enjoy it. And this book is kind of the culmination of having done that for a few years now. So it's a really exciting opportunity. All right, so the book itself, the book that I'm promoting, the reason we're all here tonight, it is Moon Oregon Hiking. It has 78 hikes, 75 in Oregon, 75 in Oregon, 3 in Washington, on the Washington side of the Columbia River Gorge, roughly 414.1 miles worth of hikes, 57 campgrounds, 10 top experiences that the publisher and I were like, if you're going to hike in Oregon, these are the experiences that you need to have, whether they're enjoying waterfall views or enjoying a pint at the brewery afterward. And along those lines, with each hike, because this is Oregon, we say, hey, once you're done hiking, here's where to grab a beer or a bite to eat afterward. So that. Before we get too far into the hikes, I do want to talk about responsible recreation. It's always been an important issue. It always will be. But I think over the past year, it's become even more important with the pandemic still happening. The Deschutes National Forest, in 2018, the Deschutes National Forest saw 3.3 million visitors that year. And then they estimated that in 2020, that number increased by 40%. So use is an absolutely critical topic. I won't belabor this point, but these are all, I guess I won't belabor this slide. I could probably spend my entire hour talking about these 7 cards, but just as you get into the outdoors this year, I hope you think about how you can keep yourself safe, how you can keep the communities you visit safe, and how you can hopefully leave no trace wherever you go. The one card I do want to talk about is that one down in the bottom right about building an inclusive outdoors, because for many reasons, a lot of communities don't feel welcome in the outdoors. They don't feel like they're accessible. And there are a lot of really great organizations that are doing their part to change that. They're getting people outdoors. They're telling stories of some of these communities that don't get their stories told very often. Just a few that I think that are worth shouting out: Melanin Base Camp, Outdoor Afro, Latino Outdoors, Vive Northwest, Fat Girls Hiking, Unlikely Hikers, Natives Outdoors, and Native Women's Wilderness. I am going to include links to all of these Instagram accounts on my Instagram story after this presentation if you would like to learn more. But just as you think about the outdoors, as you get outdoors this year, just, I think it's a good way to sort of think about a different aspect of the outdoors that a lot of us probably don't consider. So, and with that, we will dive into 10 cool and surprising hikes around Oregon. And the first surprising hike we're going to cover tonight is Smith Rock State Park. Just kidding, there's nothing surprising about Smith Rock. It is one of the most popular trails or popular parks in Oregon, but I bring it up because it can be really instructive for how to have a really fun and interesting outdoor experience in Oregon. Everyone knows about Misery Ridge. Everyone knows how busy it is, how packed it is. I was talking with Julie before this about how packed it was in mid-March. That used to never happen, but there are some ways to have a really good experience outdoors, and I want to share those through the lens of Smith Rock. So if you, let's say Smith Rock is your destination, there are a ton of trails at Smith Rock. You can stick to the river, you can get into sort of the backside of the park, and you can still have a really great experience and see some sights. And I promise you, you get a mile away from Misery Ridge, even sticking to the river, you have the park all to yourself. It's a really cool experience. You just got to find some of those trails that are a little less traveled. They do exist. Time it right. If you can do a hike during the week as opposed to a weekend, you're in much better shape. If you can start by 9, even better. If a daylight allows for it, then maybe starting at 3 or 4 p.m. for a late afternoon hike, that's another option. If it's safe, if you feel okay about it, hike in the rain. You'd be surprised. A little bit of rain sends a lot of people home. I get it, especially when you can't see some of those beautiful mountain views. But at the same time, just being outdoors, being able to enjoy that experience is a really cool, that's a really cool opportunity. Yeah. So, and then also ask a ranger. These rangers, whether it's the Forest Service, Oregon State Parks, BLM, whatever, their job is to keep you safe, to make sure you have fun, to protect the lands. They are fountains of knowledge and sources of such great information. You could say, hey, are there other trails near this really busy trail? You can say, what do you think about taking this trail or doing that hike? when would be a good time to visit? Are there closures I should know about? They are happy. They are such nice, hardworking people, and they're happy to help tell you where to go and how to make the most of your time in the outdoors. So while I would not send you to Smith Rock State Park in the middle of summer, those are some tips to maybe help you find other avenues for getting outdoors and really having a great experience. So the first of the actual 10 hikes is Little Belknap Crater. This is in the Cascades, south of Sisters, along the Mackenzie Pass Highway. And I gotta be honest, a lot of people have asked, you know, as this book has come out, a lot of people have asked if I have a favorite hike. This just might be it. You start in a small forest before launching onto this lava field that never seems to end. And everywhere you look are these incredible views of so many Cascade peaks. In the middle picture, you can see 2 of the 3 sisters. You got Broken Top, Black Crater, Black Butte, Mount Washington, so many more that I'm forgetting, but it's such an incredible experience. I would recommend having good hiking boots. Walking on lava rock can be a little bit rough, but at the same time, it's a really cool and beautiful hike. Bring some sunscreen, bring plenty of water. As you can see, there's not much shade, but one of the really fun things about this is the parking lot only has room for about 15 or 20 cars. I did this hike last year on July 3rd, and I was the last car into the parking lot, and yet I think I encountered a half dozen people the whole way. It's very easy to kind of get out of the way and to have the trail kind of to yourself. It's a really cool experience that if you're able to get a parking spot, obviously it's not going to be super overcrowded because it just can't. And while you're there in the middle of the Cascades, do yourself a favor, go to the D. Wright Observatory, which is in the photo to the right. It was built in the 1930s by the Civilian Conservation Corps. It's a really cool opportunity to see all of the Cascade peaks, to see the lava flows surrounding you in every direction. There's an interpretive trail with some really cool signage along the way. It's paved through one of the lava flows that kind of explains why is there lava everywhere. And funny enough, most of that lava comes from Little Belknap Crater, which is in the photo to the left, and Belknap Crater, which is right next door. So really fun hike. Yeah, that's probably one of my favorite hikes in Oregon. Anthony Lake to Hoffer Lakes. This was another one that just completely surprised me. Oh my gosh, this was so much fun. This what you're looking at is Gunsight Mountain, which is just, I think, east of Anthony Lake, which is the lake you see there in the photo. This is another one. One thing I loved about this is we kind of assume that to get the best views, to enjoy the most dramatic sights, we have to break our back. We have to ascend who knows how many thousands of feet, who knows how many miles. But the truth of the matter is this particular viewpoint is only a 5-minute walk around the lake from the trailhead. It is so gorgeous. You can continue, there's a path that loops around the lake, and you can head up to, as the name of the trail implies, Hoffer Lakes. You have some other mountain views up there. You can walk through a springtime meadow of wildflowers. I would caution if you do this hike in late June or early July. I did this hike at the very end of June. Bring plenty of bug spray, like maybe enough bug spray to like take a bath in. This easily was the trail that I felt the most attacked by mosquitoes. I took it personally after a certain point. They didn't stop. So the fact that I even got these photos, I consider a small win, but don't let that stop you. It's a really beautiful hike, and it doesn't require a ton of effort to enjoy some really amazing views. Along those same lines, closer to Portland, closer to the gorge, is Vista Ridge to Owl Point. This is another one of those hikes where it's similar to Little Belknap Crater. You won't have a ton of people fighting with you for space on the trail because the parking lot at the trailhead is pretty small. If you're coming out of the Hood River Valley, for instance, and you're going up to Lost Lake, there's a point where you turn right for Lost Lake, you turn left for this particular, toward this particular trailhead, and you get there and there just isn't room for many cars. I did this trail over 4th of July weekend in 2018. I think I encountered a half dozen people along the way, if that. Wildflowers are out. And one of the really cool things about this hike is you have kind of a steady ascent for the first mile. and then you ascend to sort of the summit of Vista Ridge, right? And there are all of these little short spur trails that are like 15 to 20 feet. There's the tree line next to the trail. The spur trails get through the tree line, and you get these views of Mount Hood. And as you continue further along Vista Ridge, the views get better and better and better until you get to Owl Point, where this is the view. Honestly, of all the hikes that I did for this particular guide, this was one of the hardest viewpoints to pry myself away from, because, I mean, just look at it. One of the cool little side notes about this is that gray band of burned trees there in the center. Those are burned trees from the 2011 Dollar Lake fire. So it is a pretty cool opportunity to see the effects that wildfire can have on our, our favorite outdoor spaces, and to see just how long lasting and how widespread those can be. So yeah, another fun hike up near Mount Hood. Highly recommend it if you're looking to get away from some of the other bigger Mount Hood hikes. I think like Ramona Falls, Tom, Dick, and Harry Mountain, Trillium Lake, those see a ton of people. This one kind of gets forgotten a little bit, and I'm happy to spread the word, and I hope you enjoy it. Boundary Springs is another really fun hike. So what you're looking at, believe it or not, this spring popping out of a hillside is the headwaters to the Rogue River. Boundary Springs it starts in Crater Lake National Park. The Rogue River emerges from this hillside right here, and it winds for 215 miles through the Cascades, through the Rogue Valley, through the Klamath Mountains, and then eventually empties into the Pacific Ocean. And one of the cool things is you get to hike to where it all begins. And it's this really, I don't want to say underwhelming, but you think of the Rogue River as this massive rushing river with really world-class rapids. And it starts at this spring in Crater Lake National Park. And the funny thing is, no one visits. I think people who go to Crater Lake, they tend to do Mount Scott, Garfield Peak, some of these other really big hikes that are obviously covered in this guide. But the trailhead for this is actually outside of Crater Lake National Park. You walk through a forest that was really, truly badly burned by wildfire in 2015, I think it was. But you also get to see some of that regrowth and rebirth. Obviously, as you can see here, there are a ton of wildflowers cropping up all over. And one of the cooler experiences I had researching this guide came on this particular trail. At one point, I was walking parallel to the Rogue River, and a couple deer about 100 feet up kind of came down the hillside, crossed the trail, went down to the river for a drink. It was actually really peaceful and serene and really cool experience. So the Boundary Springs Trail, it's probably not going to, it's not going to wear anyone out, but the payoff is really cool. You get to see the headwaters in one of Oregon's most famous rivers. So it's a lot of fun, a lot of really beautiful scenery, and yeah, highly recommended. All right, the OC&E Woods Line State Trail. This is another one. So this, by virtue of I've talked about a small parking lot on a couple other trails. This particular section of the trail, there's room for exactly one car at the trailhead. I was so nervous about this driving to the trailhead because I didn't know what I would do if I couldn't access it. Fortunately, it all worked out. The OC&E Woods Line State Trail is, in actuality, taking a bigger picture view of it. It's a 109-mile linear state park. It's the longest linear state park in Oregon, beating out the second longest by, I'm guessing, like 108 miles. But it starts in Klamath Falls. It heads northeast, and it kind of ends in the foothills outside the Klamath Basin. And this particular section of trail has so much to offer in just these 5 miles. You get a lot of this kind of Klamath Basin backcountry. The Brown Cemetery is a resting place for area Modoc people. You get to parallel the Wilson River, which there's a ton of waterfowl and raptors flying around. There's the turnaround point for this section of trail is at a rail yard with some abandoned rail cars and equipment. It's kind of this trail originally was a railroad that in the early 1900s was shuttling lumber and cattle all over the Klamath Basin. And at one point, I think it was, a million board feet of lumber a day that it was transporting. So obviously when the railroad closed in the 1990s, that was donated to Oregon State Parks. And today It's this 109-mile long trail. You can get a nice feel for it, a nice introduction to it, along this section of trail. It's really beautiful. All right, Sky Lakes Wilderness. So I cheated a little bit. I know I said 10 hikes, 10 cool and surprising hikes. This is actually 3. The Sky Lakes Wilderness is in the southern Cascades, kind of due south of Crater Lake, which is west of Klamath Falls. And I was so shocked to learn in the 1980s and 90s, the Environmental Protection Agency did some studies and found that these lakes have some of the most chemically pure water in the entire world, which is a really cool kind of notch in our belt. But so in that particular chapter, I have 3 hikes in the Sky Lakes Wilderness. One is the Sky Lakes Basin via the Cold Springs Trail, where you pass 5 of these mountain lakes. Another one is Horseshoe Lake, which is the top. So the top right photo is actually Round Lake on the way to Horseshoe Lake. I told you there were a lot of lakes in this basin. And then the one on the bottom right is actually the approach to Puck Lakes along the Nanny Creek Trail. One of the really cool things about these trails are all super popular in summer. Obviously, as you can imagine, everyone wants to go swimming in these lakes, and they do. But they make a really fun kind of late summer, early fall hike, which is when I did these, because obviously they have great fall color. The lakes are, I think I saw 3 or 4 people while doing these hikes, while researching this book. The lakes are really beautiful. And then also there are no real mountain views to speak of. So it's not like some of the hikes here in Central Oregon where you do the hikes because you get the great mountain views. So even on a rainy day or an overcast day, as you can see, that's kind of what I ran into when doing these hikes. There's still a lot to love about them. So it's a really great option when you're not necessarily looking or can't enjoy mountain views along the way. All right, Mount Elijah. This is also in Southern Oregon. I realize we're spending a lot of time in Southern Oregon today. What can I say? It's a really beautiful part of the state. This is actually named for Elijah Davidson, who was a hunter in the 1870s, who actually discovered the nearby Oregon Caves. Today, the Oregon Caves National Monument, also known as the Marble Halls of Oregon. If you've never visited and you're not super claustrophobic, which I totally understand, they're a really fun place to visit. And this particular trailhead is only about a 15-minute drive from the Oregon Caves. What makes this hike really fun is the parking lot is really small. So again, not too many people, but you get up onto Mount Elijah. It's a nice steady incline. This isn't from the summit, but from either this or the summit, you can enjoy views of Bigelow Lakes, which is covered in lily pads and which is actually here in this photo. You get the Illinois River Valley, the Kalmiopsis Wilderness, Mount Shasta, some other South Cascade peaks. It's really beautiful. And I think one thing about this hike that just stole my heart is that you don't see any roads anywhere. There's no sign of human life anywhere. Like they have found a way to create this trail that just, it feels like you are the only person on earth, which is a really, really rare feeling. And having, not seen anyone on this particular trail, it was such a really magical feeling to look around and not see any roads, not see any signs of human life anywhere, and just see these hillsides rolling off into the horizon. It was really something special. So the next hike, also in Southern Oregon, surprise. This is Grizzly Peak, and this is just outside of Ashland. It is almost assuredly named for a grizzly, but no one really knows which one. One legend says that Grizzly Peak was named for Old Reelfoot, a grizzly that famously eluded hunters in the 1800s. Another legend says that it was named for a grizzly that attacked a hunter who, in fairness, had just shot him moments before. Another legend says that it is named for the myriad number of grizzlies that used to patrol this peak. Either way, there are no more grizzlies in Oregon. The last was shot in 1937 in the Wallowa Mountains. So you won't see any grizzlies today, but there's still a lot to love. Interestingly enough, the summit of Grizzly Peak is not a summit that you're going to brag to your friends about. scaling, because when you get to the summit, you leave the trailhead, you hit the summit, it is literally a large rock pile in a clearing in a meadow that's surrounded by trees. It is so underwhelming. I didn't even take photos. I can't even show you. It was just that boring. But once you get past that, you kind of continue north and you come out onto a clearing on kind of the hillside just below the summit, and you'll see Mount McLaughlin and Medford and Diamond Peak to the north. I wish I had, it was so beautiful. I wish I had better photos, but wildfires were raging when I did this particular hike, as I think you'll see in the photo on the left. But some really amazing views. And then as you kind of work your way around the side of Grizzly Peak, you get views of an area damaged by wildfire, which is in the photo to the left, Ashland, the Rogue Valley, surrounding hillsides, Mount Shasta, Pilot Rock, so many beautiful sights from around Grizzly Peak. It's a really fun and really beautiful trail, and its proximity to Ashland means that it might get a little bit busier than some other hikes, but at the same time, you have 5.6 miles of trails to kind of enjoy, and it's a lollipop loop. So you take one trail out, and then there's a big loop around just below the summit of Grizzly Peak, and then you take the same way back. So the loop nature of it means you'll get to enjoy a little bit more solitude. All right, Cape Sebastian. This is another one, absolutely took me by surprise when I did this particular hike. So this hike actually starts about 600 feet above the Pacific Ocean at this really scenic viewpoint. And I did this particular hike. It was either the last Saturday in September, the first Saturday in October. Either way, as you can see, really beautiful Saturday on the Oregon coast. It's a recipe for just wall-to-wall traffic the whole way through. I get to the viewpoint and it's packed. Like, I had to circle the parking lot a couple times to find a spot. And I think to myself, oh no, like, how busy will this be? And what I realized is everyone hangs out at the viewpoint, at the trailhead, at the top of this hike, which I get because obviously it's the Oregon coast. It's a beautiful viewpoint. You can see 40 miles one way, 50 miles the other way on a clear day such as this. It was a really great place to look at the view. But then as you start descending, you start going through this like beautiful kind of like hall of salal, Sitka spruce forest. The crowds thin out in a hurry. And at this point where these photos were taken, these were about 20 feet above the water line. And one of the things that was really genuinely like just so beautiful about this is there are these clearings along the trail, between the trail and then the water line below, and you can sit in like, so I just sat, propped my back up against a Sitka spruce tree, had lunch, literally with just, I could, if I looked to my right, 20 feet down was the Pacific Ocean. And I had that view all to myself for like a half hour. It was absolutely gorgeous. And so yeah, there's a lot of solitude. And then at the end of this particular trail, there's a really short, steep traverse that heads down to the beach itself. There's some steel cables to assist if you want to make that final traverse. And it ends at Hunter's Cove, which is an area of Oregon coast without much public access. So it's another place where, how rare is it to have a section of the Oregon coast all to yourself? You can do that here. Obviously it takes a little work, but it's a really quiet, really beautiful place to enjoy one of the most beautiful parts of the Oregon coast. So obviously you have to do a little bit of work to get back up to the trailhead, but it's a really fun, really beautiful hike. Yeah, this was honestly one of the most surprising hikes that I did for the entire book for that reason. The final of the 10 hikes, the Riverview Trail to the Redwood Nature Trail. I don't know how many of y'all knew this, but we do have 2 redwood groves in Oregon. They're both near the southern Oregon coast. They are obviously really, truly magical. So the particular hike that I did here starts in Alford Loeb State Park, just outside of Brookings. You follow the Chetco River, you cross a road, and then you end up at this loop where you get to walk through these really, truly amazing redwood trees. You have these ferns that that rise up past your waist. You have these really massive redwoods. What's funny is, so these redwoods are huge, and I dare anyone to say otherwise standing next to them. Each one of these redwoods, I think, has enough wood to construct 8 2-bedroom homes, which is just insane. What's funny enough is these redwoods are about 300 to 800 years old. Their more famous cousins of California are up to 2,000 years old. So there's really, you know, it's maybe not quite the same thing as going through some of the redwoods in California, but still a really fun, really beautiful trail. And it doesn't require a ton of effort. The 600 feet of elevation gain is pretty manageable. It's a lot of up and down, a lot of kind of rolling hillsides through this redwood grove. And I don't know, I definitely stopped and gawked at the trees more than I hiked for a good chunk of this trail. So that is the 10th and final hike as part of this presentation. I appreciate it. And before I turn this back over to Julie for question and answer, I do want to say, if you know, this will end at 7. There are usually questions that don't get answered. If you have a question that doesn't get answered, my DMs are open on social media. My email address is there. Please reach out, let me know, because I absolutely, as I think you can tell, love talking about the Oregon outdoors. And if I can help you enjoy the Oregon outdoors just a little bit more than happy to do so. So thank you for your time. I appreciate you taking time out. And with that, I will turn it over to Julie.
Awesome. So many of those, I hate to say as a native Oregonian, I don't know anything about. So I think I'm going to have to buy a copy of this for my sister and us, and we'll take my nephew, and it's going to be great. If anyone does have questions, please feel free to drop them in the chat screen, or you can do like the raised hand function in there and I can unmute you. One of the things I wanted to point out real quick, if anyone had visited the event on our website, is that you do break down a lot of these hikes, especially if, you know, you can take a dog, because sometimes they're not supposed to be on trails. I also like to, you know, difficulty, terrain type, the elevation. So this is a guide meant for what you were saying earlier too, about people who maybe don't usually go hiking or feel like, I'm not going to do Misery Ridge. We did the Wolf Tree Trail and I really enjoyed it. So I really like that you've included that so that everybody can feel involved in going on one of these glorious hikes. So we've got a couple questions. Let's see. Reed is asking, what websites do you recommend we visit to check on the current trail conditions or trip reports for these hikes?
Yeah. So the official agency that's responsible for each hike is usually where I start. And in the guide, there is contact information for whether it's the U.S. Forest Service, Oregon State Parks, BLM, whatever the case may be. There is that information. And then beyond that, the Oregon Hikers Field Guide is a site that I use, I think it's fair to say, religiously. It's a great site, great community of people who keep that updated. And then if you're hiking in Washington, the Washington Trails Association, WTA.org, is just an incredible resource. The official information is great. And then when you look at a certain trail, there are trip reports below each trail that offer updates on the condition, and it's a really great site. So yeah, Oregon Hikers Field Guide and Washington Trails Association are two of my favorites.
Cool. Danielle asked, are there any hikes you wished could have made this edition, but you had to cut? Oh no.
So many. Oh, some of the hikes along the Cascade Lake Scenic Byway, like Broken Top going up to No Name Lake here in Central Oregon, Green Lakes in Central Oregon, those were tough omissions. But it was, honestly, I could have ridden 75 hikes in Central Oregon, and I still would have been leaving something off. So that was tough. There were some longer hikes that I wanted to do in the Wallowas, but I think the guideline for this was 12 miles, and some of those were a little bit longer. I actually did hike up on Mount Hood to, it's that little shelter. I can't remember. There was one hike that I did the hike, took the notes, and turns out when I looked at my GPS coordinates, it was just like 12.5 miles. So it didn't make the book, which was a bit of a bummer. And then, yeah, I think those are the first ones that come to mind.
Is that the one where you start from the resort? Why am I?
Oh, you're thinking of Cooper Spur.
Is that what I'm thinking of? Where there's a little house? Or like a little.
Okay. Yeah. So Cooper Spur was one. I wanted to include that. So shouldn't admit this in a hiking chat, but whatever. We're all friends. I actually got altitude sickness on that one, and
yeah, I had to stop.
Yeah,
like,
and it was
with my friend's dog. I couldn't go any further.
Yeah, at that shelter, the friend that I did that hike with, we stopped and we had some snacks and just hung out for a bit. And then as you kind of ascend from there, he was behind me and he's like, "Are you okay? Like you're little not super sure-footed. You seem a little off." And I was like, "Yeah, I don't know what's happening." And so that one, unfortunately, it's still on the list. I would still love to do that one day, but that was a hike that I could not the only hike in the book I could not complete, unfortunately.
I mean, yeah. So Shelly asked, speaking of Southern Oregon, what are some of your favorite beer stops?
How much time do we have? Yeah, so many. Let's see. In Grants Pass, Climate City Brewing does a lot of really good stuff. They have a fun space. They actually have a really cool outdoor space. It's kind of a nice patio that's set off from the street a little bit. And then in Ashland, Caldera Brewing, they have almost 50 beers on tap. It's absolutely insane, just the sheer volume of beers, and like they're all good. I've gone in there so many times. I've never ordered the same thing twice. And every single beer is an absolute winner. Excuse me. So those two come to mind. And then kind of over on the Southern Oregon coast, Chetco Brewing. All their breweries, I think, vegan friendly. And that was one that I had heard a little bit about before researching this guide, but I didn't know too much about. I went in and I got a flight and was just completely blown away. They're all really top-notch beers, super friendly service, really fun space. So Chetco Brewing was one. And then let's see, were there any other in Southern Oregon that I'm forgetting? I'm sure there are. And I will think of them as soon as this conversation is over. But yeah, those are the ones that come to mind.
Cool. So Dan asked, how long did it take you to do all these hikes, and what is it like to see the finished product in print?
Yeah. So excuse me. I signed the contract for this guide in April 2018. I did the first hike in May, and then I hit what I thought was the 75th hike in November. So I did the 75 hikes between May and November, and then ended up, there were a few, like as soon as I finished the 75th hike, Angel's Rest reopened. And how could you write an Oregon hiking guide without including Angel's Rest? So I ended up doing that one. The Multnomah Falls, Waukena Falls Loop reopened after the Eagle Creek fire the following spring. So obviously had to include that. So it was like the 75 over the course of those 6 months. And then I did a few additional hikes over, I'd say, the next 6 or 7 months to kind of round out the collection. So,
yeah.
And then,
what is it like though to see a book? I mean, you're on the cover, like, yeah. Or wait, aren't you? Or is that
my name is?
Oh no, sorry, that's our thing that we made. Nice picture though, next to the St. John's Bridge. It's a nice picture.
Glad you noticed that. Yeah, one of my friends, she's an amazing photographer. She took that, and yeah, couldn't have been happier with that. But seeing this in print is like, it was so much work, and it took so long, and it took so much of my life, and to see the finished product. And it's funny because when you write all of this into a Word doc, it's and you have a GPS map on your phone, and you have some photos in the cloud, and it just trying to see how this is all going to come together, see what this looks like, what is this all going to look like. it's impossible to sort of see that. And then like when the UPS driver dropped them off at my apartment, I just ripped the box open and like just fell to the ground, because it was just like, oh, it's real. Like this has been a part of my life for 3 years now, and it's real. So I wish I had better words to describe that feeling, but it was a really great feeling. And yeah.
I've heard from a couple of authors over the years that it's very similar to having a child. It's
Okay.
It's like you get this little baby. And also, I mean, the moon guides themselves, like they're a good guide. And so, I mean, giving all of that info to them and then they create this, such an amazing product.
Yeah.
Like they're a really good company for that kind of stuff.
I loved working with Moon on this. My editor, Christy, was such an amazing collaborator partner on this project. And it's one of those things where I look back, I was doing some research for this presentation tonight, and I looked back at like the first draft of this guide, because the first draft had a lot more history and kind of tidbits than what we could fit into the guide itself. So I went through and was reading some of that, and I was just like, oh my God, it came so far from the first draft. And yeah, I have nothing but good things to say about Moon and the wonderful people who helped bring this to life.
Awesome. So we got a few more questions. Danielle says, is there camping along the OC&E Woods Park Trail? I bet stargazing is great there.
Stargazing is indeed great there. I'm actually working on a story for a different publication about that right now. It is some of the darkest night skies in all of Oregon. It's really beautiful. Camping along the trail, I believe there are a couple of biker hiker campsites near the far northeastern edge of the trail, but other than that, there are very few services along the way. So
yeah. Kyle asked, do you get free beer in Bend now that you're a super famous author?
I wish. You should, if they ask for your ID at the brewery and you give them a copy of your book and they don't, they're just like, whatever, it's still $6. What are you doing? So no, I wish, but I guess I'll just have to write a few more books.
Right. I mean, yeah, that's, once you have one done, it's a really fun, it's a really fun thing. Let's see here. Oh, Dan asked, what advice do you have for writers who dream of writing their own book?
It's a really good question. When I started, okay, so let me get a little bit of backstory here. I started freelancing full-time in April of 2017, almost 4 years ago to the day, actually. And I thought that if I work really hard, I get a lot of bylines, and that at some point in the very far, far distant future, like after my hair had either fallen out or gone gray, then and only then might I get the opportunity to write one guidebook. And it was less than a year after going full-time freelance that a good friend of mine and fellow guidebook writer reached out, and he said, hey, Moon is looking for someone to write a hiking guide. Are you interested? And I thought, well, sure, I'm not going to get it, but I'll go through the process. So I talked to the editor. The editor's like, okay, so like we're going to choose 1 or 2 writers to write a proposal. So I said, okay, that's fair. So I'm chosen to write a proposal, and I'm like, okay, I'll write the proposal. I'll go through that process. I'm not going to get it, but again, it's fine. It's good experience for when I eventually do want to write a book. And then write the proposal, submit it, and they say it's been accepted. And I'm like, okay, that's fine. I'm not going to get, wait, what? And so honestly, there's a big part of me that was like, can I pull this off? Like 75 hikes in 6 months, planning around snow, planning around wildfires, planning around summer heat, trying to just keep my head on straight, trying to maintain my freelance career, and then not just doing the hikes, but there was about 1 chapter per month that was due as the book went along. So I remember even at the outset thinking, it's funny when they sent me the email that said, you've been chosen to write this book, I wasn't excited. I was just like, what do I do now? And so I guess the very long answer to Dan's question is, even if you don't feel like you're ready, is just to do it, because you're going to learn some lessons along the way. And the act of doing, the act of creating, just throwing yourself into it you're just going to learn so much along the way. And honestly, this is going to sound really, really, maybe a little simplistic, but they're just words on a page. It's a lot of words on a lot of pages, but it's very doable. So I'd say, just having just starting is better than thinking about it. So
would you say too that, I mean, the topic is something you're very interested in, and that always makes a difference when you're looking at something that's maybe going to take a long time, because at a certain point that can get unfun, but then you remember, like, this is, like we were saying, it's like a little passion project. You can't let it go. So I think that's really cool. John asked, is a 12-mile hike a 2-beer hike or a 3-beer hike?
I think if you've done a 12-mile hike, cheers, John. If you've done a 12-mile hike, there's always time for 3 beers afterward.
Right.
Yeah, absolutely.
Let's see here. Tanya asked, do you have a hike that you've gone back to after having done it specifically for the book, other than Belknap, since you already said that was your favorite?
That's a really good question. Gosh, why is this so hard to think of? I'd say so I did the Trail of Ten Falls hike outside of Salem, which obviously everyone's done that. But the day that I did that, it was like for the book, it was the height of fall foliage. And the trail was crowded, to say the least. And but it was still a fun experience. And then kind of going back to that after the book came out, I went, let's see, when was it? Not after it came out, but after researching it in like 2019, like spring of 2019, it was kind of a overcast day. And being able to do that hike then was a lot of fun, because it was a lot quieter, and it was just myself. And it was, yeah, I don't know. It's probably not a very good answer. It's kind of long and rambling, but it was a good question. But yeah, I think so. The Trail of Ten Falls is one that trail just never gets old.
Would you say that kind of speaks to what you were talking about in the beginning, though, of you can go to one that's going to be like Smith Rock, really busy on a Saturday or Sunday, and you can still have a good time. But if you can go on Thursday, try it again. Don't let that one time say, I'm never going back there. You have to try it again. Ray asked, any upcoming or future projects you can let us know about?
Yes. I'm so glad he asks. So I have written and completed another travel guide for Moon. This is the Columbia River Gorge and Mount Hood and the Hood River Valley. And that particular hike gets past, or that particular guide gets past the hikes. There are some hikes in the guide, like Coyote Wall, Dog Mountain, Catherine Creek, to name a few. But it also gets to wineries and breweries and the U-Pick farms along the Hood River Fruit Loop. That was such a fun guide to put together, stressful guide to put together, but fun. That is, I think, coming out September 21st or so. So yeah.
Awesome. Well, then hopefully we'll either have you back for another Zoom, or we'll be able to have you in the store. And then we will provide free beer for you if
oh my goodness,
in the store.
Oh my goodness, let's do it.
John has another question. Yep. How did COVID affect your research and ability to do these hikes, or were you done hiking and writing by the time the world imploded? John, you should be a writer.
He's a very good writer, let me say.
Great.
But so for this particular guide, all of the research, everything was done before COVID. That's actually one of the sad things about this particular guide, because I was looking through the table of contents, like figuring out, okay, which hikes do I want to talk about? And a lot of, like, they've all reopened post-COVID, but a lot of them are now closed because of the wildfires from last year, which is just the nature of things, but it's still sad. I will say, researching the Columbia River Gorge guide, I did all the research for that between April and November of 2020, which I signed the contract 2 weeks after the lockdowns started last spring. And that was honestly just one of the most stressful things that I've ever done in my life, especially because I have such a low risk tolerance. You know, and yeah, just it was a lot. It was a lot. But fortunately, the hikes that I ended up doing for that particular guide, I managed to go on off days. Like, it's funny enough, the Coyote Wall hike, I was up from Bend trying to do the Coyote Wall hike in the gorge. And I just completely spaced on the fact that I was going on a sunny September Saturday. And I got to the parking lot, there's literally nowhere to park. And so I had been in town for a few other things researching the guide. That particular trail, I literally was like, okay, well, I guess I'm coming back next weekend, and turned around and drove home because nowhere to park. So I should have taken my own advice from earlier in this presentation. But yeah, so researching this particular, the gorge guide that's coming out in September was an ordeal, to say the least.
Yeah, it's interesting to think about that, about how COVID has affected. I mean, there were still so many people at Smith Rock, you know, not wearing masks, wearing masks. Like, it's just changed the way we do everything.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's been.
And the other thing is, with so much closed down this past summer, you saw a lot more crowded trails, campgrounds, that kind of thing. And that, you know, the Deschutes National Forest, they said their visitorship was up 40% this past summer. So yeah, just another kind of ripple effect of the pandemic.
Yeah. You know, that's a good thing to remember too, is, you know, a lot of these places, if you have to pay to park or, you know, pay to use it, like that money goes to good organizations that are keeping these trails maintained. Are a lot of the ones in your book maybe more, I don't want to say less maintained, but like less, you know, they're just kind of a little bit more wild, like you just kind of show up and go?
Actually, not with this book. When the book came about, the directive was like the 75 most essential hikes in Oregon.
Okay.
So that's, you know, it's funny, our very first Amazon review for the guide, not that I check this religiously or anything, but kind of complained about how you never get off the beaten path with this guide. And I just remember seeing that and thinking, that's by design, that's the point. So these trails are all really popular, really well maintained. And even if you're not going to get super into the backcountry on these hikes, you're still going to see some really beautiful scenery.
Let me ask you this, with some of the planning details that came up, or, you know, the bullet points we got from your publisher, do you have notes on which of these hikes are kid friendly?
Yes.
Good. Okay, awesome. Dan wants to know, what goes through your mind on a hike? What makes it special?
Another good question. If I'm researching it for the book, I'm like super in the moment of trying to notice, how steep is this ascent? Are there spur trails? Is the spur trail after 0.6 miles, or is there another spur trail in another 1.3 miles? And should people go that way? Should they go this way? Whatever. Researching the hike, it's a great way to just be very much in the zone in the moment. When I'm just doing a hike for fun, just because usually it's I think just trying to sort of notice, like, hey, there's some really beautiful scenery around here. You know, there's some just trying to, I don't know, I guess the worst day outdoors is usually better than the best day indoors. I just feel like, you know, even if it's a rainy day, being able to listen to the rain and feel the rain on the jacket. If it's a really hot summer day, just being able to experience that and just be like, you know, especially right now here in Bend, it snowed a little bit today, as you said earlier, and just being able to sort of appreciate that, the warmth and the natural beauty. And then, you know, when I get to go hiking with someone, like a friend or something like that, you know, being able to kind of share that experience with them and really, really kind of enjoy that is always a joy. So a little of everything.
Awesome. Well, We've only got a couple minutes, so if there are more questions, please pop them in the chat. I just want to remind everyone, obviously the book is for sale at the store. Like I said earlier, please give us a call if you're not comfortable coming in the store, and we can put it on the red bench. We can deliver it to you, etc. We have some more awesome events coming up in the next couple of months. We actually have an event in May with a book that is like one of the most anticipated books of 2021. So one of the things that I love about being the events manager is spending an evening talking about Oregon hiking with someone hyper local that is like, this is what Oregon and Bend is about, like doing this fun outdoor stuff. And then in a couple months, we're going to get to talk to somebody on the East Coast where I'm like, what's your life like? You wrote this cool book. I'm so grateful for everybody who's here tonight, for all of the authors who have continued to support us. Please continue to support them as well. When you write a book, it's a labor of love and not often a money-making machine. So I know that you wrote this book for people to enjoy it, and that's one of the best things that I can think of when it comes to writing a book, is that people just need to love it.
And honestly, that to me is like, because writing this book obviously was really difficult. It was a lot of work. But honestly, the thing that I love most about it is like that feeling of joy and passion and excitement that I feel from the Oregon outdoors. If I can connect someone with that, even if they don't like love it to the same level that I do, where I'm getting, my friends are getting me Oregon birthday cakes, that's okay. But like, it's just like, there's something there. There's something really genuinely magical about that. And so honestly, if I can help connect people with that, that is the best feeling ever. So,
yeah. Well, thank you so much again. Thank you, everyone. Make sure to check out our event calendar. Matt, thank you so much. This was so great. We've got lots of things in the chat.
Awesome.
We will have you back as soon as we can. I think a live presentation on this one, maybe 10 different hikes, is definitely in the cards. So
let's do it. I can't wait.
Thank you, everyone. Have a wonderful weekend. Get outside. Yes. We need some vitamin D in our life.
Now we do. I'll see y'all on the trail.
Thank you. Bye.